very difficult, painful situation. I'm a Jesus guy. I know him. I don't know about him, but I know him. He's real. And he wants to meet with us tonight. He wants to help us process. A lot of times when I come to a situation like this, doesn't matter the time of day, fully cognizant of the time of day, fully cognizant of the circumstances that we are all facing here, or at least most of us. And I often begin by simply saying good morning. There's a couple ways you can take that. And what I really mean by that is good, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G. Good morning. There's a good way to grieve. And hopefully we can process well tonight and grieve well. Your pain is real. And one way that you mourn well is that you don't simply try to run from your pain or deny it, but you embrace it and you feel it. And that may make you cry. It may make you hurt really bad. It may even make you very angry. But the best way I know to mourn well is to embrace the pain and not run from it. Sometimes we try to anesthetize ourselves. Food, alcohol, and the list could go on and on. Embrace it tonight. Can you? Can you give it a try? So to help us mourn well, we want to remember Jeremey. It's your dad, your son, your friend. You knew him, I did not. So we're going to give you an opportunity in a few minutes here to maybe express maybe a thought or two if you'd like. Melissa's going to come and share in just a moment. But let me just read to you what maybe most of you already have known and read. Jeremey Drwall, 51 years of age, was a resident of Avon and passed away on Thursday, June the 8th, 2023 at his home. He was born February 11th, 1972 in Lorain, Ohio. Jeremey was raised in Amherst before moving to Avon, where he made his home for the last 2 years. Jeremey was a very hard worker and was employed as an assembler at the Ford Motor Company in Avon. He loved sports of all types, especially baseball. He was an avid Dallas Cowboy fan. I don't know how you did that in Cleveland, but
He did it.
he did it.
Sure did.
He did it. You'd rarely find him without his favorite beer, Coors Banquet. He was a family man. He loved the time he spent with his family. He especially enjoyed following his grandchildren's sporting events. Jeremey was super social. His picture certainly seems to suggest that. And he loved making new friends. He had a very contagious, loud laugh that everyone loved. He was a creature of habit, keeping his yard very meticulous and his car well detailed. He enjoyed cooking, especially meatballs and sauce for family and friends, and loved freeze pops. What are your memories? Melissa, would you be so kind? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Come and share with us, would you please? Thank you.
Okay. I had to write this in my phone so I wouldn't forget what I wanted to say or did. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Melissa. Jerry is the love of my life. He was my heart, my soul, my one true love. He made me laugh. He made me cry. He brought the crazy out the crazy side out in me while I tried to bring out the calmer side in him. We were a perfect mix. From the first day I met Jerry, December 1989, sitting on Kurt Bursline's couch, he stole my heart, and I never got it back. His infectious smile melted my heart. His loud, crazy laugh made me laugh too. His touch sent butterflies off in my stomach. When we moved separate ways after high school, he gave me a constant reminder of him, our son Ryan. And God, let me tell you, Ryan acted just like him. I couldn't have forgot Jerry if I wanted to, but I didn't, and I couldn't. He was my one true love. God only gives us one true love. Others will come and go, but your true love never leaves your mind, your body, or your soul. So when we separated then, and others, I lost where I was. So we separated then, and others came into our lives. It was just for a brief moment in time. God knew we'd find our way back to each other, and we did. 15 years ago, my life felt right again. I had my only love back, and nothing could tear us apart. Oh, we were tested many times, and there were ups and downs, but no matter what happened, we stuck it out. And this is no different. He's physically not here anymore, but that doesn't change how we feel about each other. He's my soulmate for life. He left 6 beautiful children for me to love. He left Ryan, Caitlin, Jasmine, Kelsey, Julia, and Jace, and you guys are his legacy. You were his pride and joy, and you're my pride and joy too. I'm gonna be here to hold you all together, and for now, I'm not saying goodbye, but I'm saying I'll see you when I get there. Always, forever, still. Nothing will ever change that. That's how I felt about it.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
It's not easy to do. I appreciate you doing it. Is there a word that you might use that you'd like to remember him by? You can share with us from right where you are, anybody, or maybe even a brief story, a thought. Anyone like to share? I know I've introduced you to number one fear, speaking in public, right? It's okay. I came across this poem a long time ago. It's simply entitled The Dash. I don't always share it, but it just seemed to be right for the occasion here. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came her date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she had spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters most is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? Do you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged? If you could slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand how other people feel, and be less quick to anger, and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might last only a little while. So when your eulogy's being read, when your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they said about how you spent your dash? Somebody said you cannot go back and create a new beginning, But you can start today and create a new ending. I'm fully cognizant of the fact that our history, our past, has a way of either rewarding us or biting us. And sometimes it does a little bit of both. But I want to talk with you about good morning. I want you to pause for a moment. Did you feel that? You look at me, a little blank in your eyes. You and I just experienced something that we've never experienced before. And that was a brand new moment. You and I have never lived in this moment before. And as long as you and I have breath, these moments keep coming our way. I knew a man who said that for those who believe in Christ, and certainly there's a sense for anybody, he said, it's always morning. It's always a brand new beginning. Sometimes I will say to people, another time of the day, I just say good morning, and they probably look at me like I'm a little nuts. And sometimes if they care to ask, I'm more than happy to share my sentiment and my thoughts about the fact that this is a brand new moment. And you and I have never lived here, and as long as we have breath, they're going to keep coming our way. And how is it that we can so live our lives that these moments that keep coming, instead of creating problems or issues for us, can be beneficial so that we can live in peace? I'd like to talk to you about that for a few moments. Good morning. It's a brand new opportunity for you and I to live, to really live. I grew up in church. I hated church. It was boring. People told me I couldn't run. I wanted to play with my friends. Didn't like it. I really don't care much for religion. But I really am into this guy named Jesus. And Jesus said, I came so that you might have life and have it to the full. I was a young teenager. I was so miserable inside. I was trying to think of a way to end my life. Then I found him. And he changed everything. Because with him, there's always hope. See, I realize in this kind of setting, knowing what we all know, is that there's irritation, anxiety, maybe even fear. This situation is not so much about Jeremy tonight as it's about us. It's about our memories, about our thoughts, and it's about our life. It's about our destiny. It's about our life here and our life hereafter. There is a passage in the scriptures where Jesus is speaking, and he's been talking about his coming death. It's really quite fascinating if you sink into the context and all that's happening there. Because in facing the most difficult time of his life, he faces it with such poise, such peace, such strength. It'd be kind of like you having to have open heart surgery and the doctor says to you, hey, got to tell you, we're having this surgery tomorrow, but we can't give you any anesthesia. We got to keep you fully awake for the procedure. And now you understand something of what the man Jesus Christ was about to go through when he was crucified. It was one of the most barbaric forms of death known to man. And in those moments before his death, when he was with his guys, he says these words to them. He's talking about his coming death. He's preparing them. And he says, don't let your hearts be troubled. It's like, are you kidding me? It's interesting because he used that same word for troubled about himself earlier when he was thinking about his death. He says, now my heart is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it's for this very purpose I came into the world. And he immediately moves past his troubled spirit. That word for troubled would be kind of like a word that we'd use if you've ever been out on Lake Erie in rough seas. I've been out on Lake Erie in 4-foot chops, and I tell you, it's no fun. I guarantee you that. I didn't like it at all. I get seasick. I don't like it. But I've talked to people who've been out in 8-foot waves, and they're afraid for their life. And that's what we're talking about. We're dealing with that word troubled. And Jesus almost has the gall to say to these guys, don't let your hearts be troubled. And if I'm one of the guys, I'm saying, the reason my heart's troubled is because of you. You're making my heart troubled and talking about all this. Your heart gives you the audacity to say, don't let it be troubled. But I want you to listen to what he says. He said, don't let it be, not don't let it get. Understand? Our world is full of troubled hearts. That's why we got road rage. That's why we have short fuses. That's why we go off on each other so easily. We're agitated inside. We've never dealt with some of the issues of our life that made us hurt, that wounded us, that made us angry. And there is not a person in this room, including myself, who doesn't have things that are in our closet, so to speak, that we don't want anybody to know about. Jesus comes along on this night before his death, and he says, don't let your hearts be troubled. I think if he showed up in this room tonight, and I believe he's speaking even through me, he would say the same thing to each one of you. Despite whatever it is you're going through, and even understanding what we're processing here together tonight, don't let it be, remain troubled. If you're like me, you're asking the question, wow, how do you do that? He said, don't let your heart be troubled. And then the next phrase could be taken one of two ways. Next two phrases, actually. He said, trust in God, trust also in me. It can be used with such a degree of intensity. It's like he's pointing his finger. It's almost as if he's sticking it in your chest. He says, you are trusting in God, trust also in me. And in so doing, he makes himself, he puts himself on an equal plane with God. Or it could be taken as, you are trusting in God, you also are to trust in me. A statement of fact. And that's the key. That's the key to living into the moments that keep coming our way. Things that agitate us, the things that stir us up, the things that hurt us, wound us inside. And we guys don't like the word hurt. We prefer to use the word angry. But it's hurt. Make no mistake about it. It's hurt. And this whole situation really sucks. This hurts. This is not good. And this is not something God has ever planned for any of us. I don't believe that for a moment. But he has a plan. And he wants you and I to trust the Father and to trust him. It's an interesting phrase, both of those things. It carries the idea of faith or belief in, trust in. And what does it mean to believe in someone? What does it mean to trust in somebody? You see, when you and I trust somebody, when we really trust somebody, do you know what we do? We go to them with our issues and our concerns, right? We talk to them. We want them to help us. We rely on them. We depend on them. We lean on them. And if we really trust somebody, really, really trust somebody, we will listen to what they say. And if you really, really trusted them, we'd probably do what they told us. Because we depend on them, we trust them, we believe in them that much. And now you're understanding what it means when the Bible speaks about and Jesus speaks about believing in him. It means to trust him, rely on, depend on, submit to, even obey him. That's how you cope with life. That's how you move beyond the troubled spirit. You see, you can trust in somebody, and it's always good. I mean, it's good to have your friends. It's good to have family, people you can rely on, people you can lean on and talk to. That's a good way to mourn. It's to talk about your pain. It's to talk about what's hurting you. That's good mourning. But I tell you, there is a peace that God wants to give to you that only comes from him. When we lean into him and rely and depend on him, we go to him. There's nothing like it. I moved to this area 35 years ago, and when I did, I have 2 boys. I have a little girl now, which they're all married. They're not, my girl's not married, but she's my little girl. Well, our 2 boys were still around at the time when we came here, and we had some friends take the boys to Chuck E. Cheese. Anybody ever been to Chuck E. Cheese? It's like a kid's casino, right? Yeah. And so our boys loved it. They came home and had a good time. Terrible pizza, but they had a good time. So we decided as a family we wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese. And so I didn't know how to get to Chuck E. Cheese. All I knew was in North Olmsted. And so my son, my 5-year-old son, says to me, "Dad, I can get us there." I said, "Okay, I can get to North Olmsted." So we piled into the car, drove down 480, got off on Great Northern Boulevard, and I'm coming up the ramp. I don't know which way to go. My son doesn't know his left from his right. And I look in the rearview mirror. He's sitting on my right in the back seat. And I look in the rearview mirror. I said, "Greg, which way do I turn when I get up here?" He says, "You go this way, Dad." I said, "Okay." So I got to the traffic light and I turned left. I'm going down the road. If you've ever been down that stretch of road, you know it's got a gazillion lights. And every traffic light, I'm looking in the mirror. I said, "Greg, what do I do? Do I keep going straight? What do I do?" He said, "Keep going straight, Dad." I got up to Lorraine Road. I have to turn you to the left or right. And I look in the mirror one more time. I said, "Greg, which way do I go now?" He says, "It's down this way, Dad." And he points to his right. I said, "Okay." He's 5 years old. I'm a grown man. I'm an adult. And I'm taking orders from a 5-year-old boy. So I turn right. I drive a little bit and I'm not seeing Chuck E. Cheese. And I'm beginning to think that my 5-year-old son doesn't know where Chuck E. Cheese is. And we've just been led on a wild goose chase. And so I'm driving down the road. It seemed like forever, but it was maybe not even a mile. And I look in the rearview mirror and I said, "Greg, are you sure that Chuck E. Cheese is down here?" Sure, just sitting right here before me. I remember that moment. And he looked at me through the rearview mirror and cocked his 5-year-old little head. And he looked and he says, "What's the matter, Dad? Don't you trust me? Don't you trust me?" Said it just like that. Like several of you, I started chuckling. In fact, we all chuckled. My 3-year-old son in the back seat was laughing. And we drove on, and sure enough, there was Chuck E. Cheese. That story is a perfect example or an illustration of what it means to trust in someone, to believe someone, to rely on them. On that same night, in that same passage of Scripture, Jesus not only told them to not let their hearts remain in a troubled state, and really told them the solution to how you do that. You trust in, you rely on. He went so far as to say this, and it's very important you capture these words. He said he was going to the Father, and Philip says to him, How do we go there? What's the way? And Jesus says, "Philip," he said this, But listen carefully. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And no one comes to the Father except by me or through me. People say, oh, there are many roads to heaven. No, really, there's only one. It's through Jesus. Well, how do you take his, why would you take his word? The unique thing about Jesus and being a follower of his, as opposed to any other religious belief, is this. Jesus is the only one who ever claimed to be God. And when they asked him how he could prove it, he said, you destroy this temple and I'll raise it in 3 days. And he spoke of his resurrection. And he had 11 men who died believing in that story because they saw him. Would you die for a lie? Who would die for a lie? All independently. Here's what I know. It's real. Jesus also said on that very night, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I don't give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. He's real. Cares. He's not against you, he's for you. What about my dad? What about Jeremy? I have no clue. I'm not the judge. I do remember this story, though. When Jesus was crucified, there were two that were crucified with him. You read the gospel accounts and the stories of the crucifixion, you find that both of these guys were ridiculing Jesus, mocking him, just like many others that day. Finally, one comes to his senses, and through his pain and his own suffering, having watched Jesus long enough to become convinced that this is no ordinary man, he looks at him and he simply says, would you remember me when you come into your kingdom? He's nearing his final breaths. What would you have said? Jesus said to the man, today you'll be with me in paradise. One day, this will be our story right here. It'll be you. It'll be me. And I think Jesus is coming to you and he's saying, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust in me. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'll take you there. Will you follow? Will you rely? Will you lean on me? Are you willing to do what I say? Because this is the way of life. It's your story. This is about you. Make a good choice. Follow him. I had a man that I honored and admired as a hero. Strong man. He used to say these words. Following Jesus is the best way to live. and it's the only way to die. I'd recommend him to each one of you tonight. I'd like to pray for you, okay? Jesus, I realize in this room there's a lot of concerns, there's fear, there's agitation, confusion perhaps, but also maybe their hearts have been warmed tonight, and I pray these folks in this room could feel and sense the reality of who you are even right now. You're the one who's come and wants to give us all peace. You're the God of peace. You're the God of strength. You're the God of love. You're also the God of truth. I pray for hearts to be open to receive and to trust in you, Jesus, so that each one could have and know this life that you came to give. You're the only way. May they and myself walk that way for the rest of our lives. I pray in your name, Jesus. Amen. Our funeral director is going to come and give us some words of instructions in this